My dog did something so funny, you'll laugh for hours. I've always said my dog Charlie has more personality than most people I know. He's goofy, stubborn, and somehow manages to find trouble in the most unexpected ways. But last week, he outdid himself. I was just trying to have a normal afternoon when Charlie decided to stage the funniest, most ridiculous scene I've ever witnessed. I laughed so hard I cried, and honestly, I still can't get over it. Let me tell you what happened. You're going to love this. Charlie is a 3-year-old golden retriever, but don't let the breed's reputation for obedience fool you. He's anything but. Charlie has 2 main modes, goofy chaos and overdramatic diva. One moment he'll be chasing his tail like it's the greatest invention ever, and the next, he'll collapse onto the floor with a loud huff if I don't share my snack fast enough. One of his quirks is his obsession with shoes, not chewing them, thankfully. He's too dignified for that. No, Charlie likes to steal them. Sneakers, boots, even flip-flops. He'll carry them around the house like trophies, proudly presenting them to anyone who will pay attention. It's not destructive. It's just weirdly endearing. Now, this particular incident started like any other day. I had just finished cleaning the house and sat down to relax when I noticed Charlie acting suspiciously quiet. If you have a dog, you know that silence is almost never a good sign. I looked over and saw him standing in the corner, staring at my closet with laser focus. His tail was wagging, but it wasn't the happy, carefree wag. It was the I'm up to something wag. "Charlie, what are you doing?" I called out. He whipped his head around, looked at me, and then darted back to the closet. That's when I knew I was in for it. I got up to investigate, and the second Charlie saw me moving, he dove into the closet like a kid sneaking into a candy jar. By the time I reached him, he was halfway inside, his butt sticking out and his tail wagging furiously. "Charlie, get out of there," I said, laughing despite myself. But he ignored me, his head buried deep in a pile of shoes. Then he emerged, triumphant. In his mouth, he held one of my sneakers. Not just any sneaker, though. It was the bright neon pink running shoe I hadn't worn in months. It looked ridiculous dangling from his mouth, but he carried it like it was the crown jewels. And then, to my utter disbelief, he bolted. Charlie zoomed out of the closet and down the hall, prancing like he'd just won an Olympic medal. I chased after him, yelling, "Charlie, bring that back!" But he wasn't listening. Instead, he paraded around the living room, showing off his prize like he wanted applause. The funniest part? Every time I got close, he'd drop the shoe, wait for me to reach for it, and then snatch it up again before darting away. It was like he'd turned this into some elaborate game of keep away, and he was absolutely loving it. At one point, he jumped onto the couch with the shoe, stared me dead in the eye, and let out a muffled bark through the fabric. I lost it. I was laughing so hard I could barely stand, which only seemed to encourage him. As I stood there laughing, trying to catch my breath, Charlie took his performance to the next level. He leapt off the couch and bolted straight for the backyard door, the shoe still dangling from his mouth. "Charlie, no!" I called, scrambling to keep up. But he was too fast. By the time I got to the door, he'd already burst through the doggy door and was tearing across the lawn like a man on a mission. I followed him outside, and that's when I saw it. My neighbor, Mr. Harris, standing on his porch with a cup of coffee, watching the whole thing unfold. He gave me a raised eyebrow and a smirk. "Trouble in paradise?" he called out. "Just another day with Charlie," I replied, trying to sound composed as I sprinted after my dog. Charlie, of course, couldn't care less. He was running circles around the yard, stopping occasionally to throw the shoe in the air like it was a toy. Every time I got close, he'd grab it and dart off again, tail wagging like a helicopter blade. By this point, my sides were aching from laughing so hard. Even Mr. Harris, who's usually pretty stoic, started chuckling. "You've got your hands full with that one," he said, shaking his head. "Oh, you don't know the half of it," I shouted back. Just when I thought the chaos couldn't escalate any further, Charlie decided to take things up a notch. He dashed over to the flower bed, my freshly planted flower bed, and plopped himself right in the middle of it. My neon pink sneaker was now half buried in the dirt as he pawed at it like he was digging for treasure. "Charlie, no!" I yelled, running toward him. He froze for a moment, his head tilted innocently, as if to say, "What? I'm helping." Then, with perfect comedic timing, he grabbed the shoe, launched himself out of the flower bed, and made a beeline for the kiddie pool we'd set up for him. Before I could stop him, he dunked the shoe straight into the water, It made a loud sploosh, sending water flying everywhere. Charlie looked so proud of himself, standing there with the soggy sneaker in his mouth, his fur dripping as if he'd just saved it from drowning. By this point, I was doubled over laughing. Even Mr. Harris, who had been watching the entire spectacle, was practically in tears. "You've got a little comedian on your hands," he called out, shaking his head in disbelief. Charlie finally trotted back over to me, the now drenched sneaker in his mouth. He dropped it at my feet, sat down, and gave me the goofiest grin I'd ever seen. It was like he was saying, "You're welcome." I stood there, staring at the soggy, dirt-covered sneaker at my feet, trying to decide whether to be mad or just accept defeat. Charlie, of course, looked immensely pleased with himself. His tail thumped against the ground, splattering bits of mud everywhere, as if he were waiting for a round of applause. I picked up the shoe with 2 fingers, holding it at arm's length. "Well, Charlie," I said, trying not to laugh again, "I hope you're proud of yourself." He responded with a joyful bark and immediately rolled onto his back, wiggling around in the grass like he didn't have a care in the world. I couldn't even be mad at him. How could I, when he looked so ridiculously happy? The aftermath of the whole fiasco was a mess, literally. The flower bed was half ruined, the kiddie pool was now a muddy swamp, and my sneaker, well, it was beyond saving, but honestly, I didn't care. Watching Charlie go from sneaky shoe thief to backyard entertainer had made my day, and apparently Mr. Harris's too. When I brought Charlie back inside, he flopped down on his favorite spot on the couch, completely exhausted from his escapades. I sat next to him, shaking my head. "You're lucky you're cute, you know that?" He let out a dramatic sigh, as if to say, "I know." After the chaos had settled, I couldn't stop replaying the whole incident in my mind. It was one of those moments that perfectly captured Charlie's personality, his knack for turning the ordinary into something unforgettable. I shared the story with a few friends later, complete with pictures of the destroyed flower bed and the waterlogged sneaker, and their reactions were priceless. "That dog needs his own comedy special," one of them joked. But honestly, that's just Charlie. Whether he's sneaking shoes, dramatically flopping onto the floor for attention, or barking at his own reflection, he has a way of making every day brighter, and significantly more unpredictable. This whole thing was a reminder of why I love having him around. Sure, he's a handful, but moments like this make all the muddy paws and destroyed shoes worth it. Dogs have this amazing ability to find joy in the simplest things, and they remind us to laugh, even when they're causing chaos. Make sure to like the video and subscribe so you never miss more shocking and real stories like this one. A few days after the incident, I realized something. Charlie's sneaker heist wasn't just a one-time event. It was part of a much bigger pattern. As I cleaned up the remnants of the flower bed, I thought back to all the little escapades that made him, well, Charlie. Like the time he somehow figured out how to open the pantry door and drag an entire loaf of bread onto the living room carpet. Or the day he decided my pile of freshly folded laundry was his new nap spot, leaving everything covered in golden fur. Each memory made me laugh all over again, reminding me that this dog had turned my life into a series of comedic episodes. And then, to no one's surprise, Charlie struck again. This time, it was my roommate's slipper. He managed to sneak it out of her room and carry it to the backyard without anyone noticing. When we found him, he was lying in the grass with the slipper tucked under his chin like it was a prized possession. I swear he gave us a look that said, "What? It's mine now." Despite the chaos, I wouldn't trade Charlie's antics for anything. He has this incredible ability to turn even the most frustrating moments into something memorable. Sure, he's a handful, but he's also a constant source of joy. And let's be honest, my life would be a lot more boring without him. This whole experience reminded me why dogs are such a special part of our lives. They don't care about perfection or schedules or clean flower beds. They live in the moment, finding happiness in the simplest things, and in their own mischievous way, they teach us to do the same. Every time I look at Charlie now, I can't help but smile. He's not just a pet, he's my best friend, my partner in crime, and the best source of entertainment I could ever ask for. Do you have a dog, or any pet, that's pulled off a hilarious stunt like Charlie? Share your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more adventures with Charlie. Thanks for watching, and remember, Sometimes the messiest moments make the best memories. See you in the next one.